Okay, so welcome to the first in a series of 8 free webinars that we're going to give throughout this term. Very nice to see you all. Some names I recognise on the list, some I don't. So if I don't know you, then welcome. If I do know you, then I hope you are doing fantastically well at home. So today's webinar is called Expect More, Believe More, Achieve More. And it's all about how, as teachers, we have a big effect on our student outcomes depending on our behaviour. So hopefully by the end of the webinar, you'll think more in class about what behaviour you demonstrate and how that can affect your students and the outcomes that they have at the end of the day. So there's 3 tutors that will be giving you webinars over the next couple of months. My name is Karen, so I'm in the middle, obviously. And then you've got on the left, you've got Inigo, and then on the right, you've got Alex. So you'll be seeing the 3 of us over the course of the webinars. Also, I'd like to welcome people from Richmond. So thank you very much, Richmond. So this is in collaboration with Richmond, and I'd like to welcome everybody that was invited by Richmond today. So thank you very much to everybody there. So the thing that really inspired me to start this research and the talk on Expect More, Believe More, Achieve More was something that I read in a newspaper back in 2017. And basically the article was about teachers in secondary schools who didn't know how to deal with high achieving students. And actually the majority of students that were being excluded, who were sent out of class, were actually high achieving students. And it was due to a lack of training and a lack of positive attitude on the part of lots of the teachers that they researched, which meant that the students weren't achieving what they needed to achieve. And it meant that there were lots of students who were missing out on lots of education because teachers had attitudes like this. So I have 25 students in this class, and I'm not going to do anything different with yours. So this really got me thinking when I read this about students that I've seen come through the system, and thinking, oh my gosh, if a student behaves like this, was it something that we were doing wrong? Was it to do with us, or was it actually to do with the students themselves? You can never really tell, I think, but I think this whole idea of teacher attitude and the way that we treat the students and the expectations that we demonstrate in our classes has a really big effect on how they see themselves and how they perform in class and how they achieve throughout their education journey. So these are my questions to myself at the beginning. Okay, so the question was, okay, what affects students' negative behavior in class? And I think this is something that we ask ourselves all the time. And I'm not here to say that your expectation is the only thing that changes that or can affect students' negative behavior. But what I am here to say is that perhaps this is one part of the cause and of the root to students' negative behavior. I then thought to myself, what if this has very little to do with the students themselves and everything to do with us? So my goal today is to consider our own position of responsibility and how our daily actions can affect our students' behavior and our students' learning outcomes. So in those cliched words that nobody ever wants to hear, perhaps when it comes to students, it really isn't them, it could be us. And ultimately, it's something that we can control. Our actions are something that we can control. We can't control what happens with our students, what they bring to the classroom, but this is something that we can control and we can change. Hopefully, we can increase that positivity in our classes for our students. So I have a little task for you guys now. I just want you to think about who this is. Some of you might know, but I've done this before with teachers and they don't know. Disappointing. So who is this? Hopefully you've got it in your heads now. So it is, oh, someone's on the chat. I like it. Matilda's teacher, yes. Name? 500 points for name? No? No one's got the name. Okay. The name is Miss Honey, for those of you who are probably thinking it. So it's Matilda's teacher, yes. And I think in Matilda, what we get from this is that she is the idea of the best teacher. And she has lots of very nice teacher attributes, which mean that her students really like her, they respect her, they do work for her. So she is this idea, this picture, this image of a very good teacher. So at the beginning, when I did this research, I got a group of teachers together, so the teachers that I work with, and I asked them to describe how a good teacher makes them feel. Because I think ultimately, as a teacher, what we need to do is we need to reflect on our own learning and the teachers that we had growing up, because we are ultimately a combination of all of the teaching experiences that we've had, both as a teacher, but more importantly, as a student. There's a reason why we decided to become a teacher. And I think if we're honest, when we teach, we can probably see a little bit of all the teachers that we've had in ourselves and in the teaching that we demonstrate every day. So importantly, I asked the teachers to think about how a good teacher makes them feel. So this is what they came up with. I'm just going to give you 1 minute to have a read of all of these things. Okay, so hopefully some of these you will identify with, you might have thought of. You might be able to add more to these, but these were the ones that I just picked out because I thought they were particularly important. Capable, inspired, important, intelligent, valued. All of these are feelings that we would really like to evoke within our students. And in doing that, we can help them achieve and be the best that they can possibly be. And often, as I said, we forget to reflect on our own experiences as a learner when it comes to thinking about how we can become a better teacher. So some of you might have predicted you have also the opposite side of this. And to demonstrate the point, I have a bad teacher. This is, some of you might know, this is another teacher from Matilda, but it's the two extremes. So this is Miss Trunchbull. If you watch the film, you'll remember her for making this boy eat a whole chocolate cake because he stole a part of it from the kitchen. Best film ever. So this is Miss Trunchbull, and she is kind of synonymous with bad teaching and being a bad teacher. So just like before, I asked the teachers to think about how a bad teacher makes them feel. And this is what they came up with. So here we have doubtful, stupid, different, upset, overwhelmed, worthless, disliked. Okay, so these are all the things that teachers have picked out in terms of how their bad teachers made them feel. So this is what we want to try and avoid evoking in our students. But is this easy to stop our students feeling disliked, insecure? I would say it's not very, very easy, but it's possible. And it's possible through small things in class that we probably don't realize that we're doing. So after considering the teachers and the students, I also wanted to kind of gain insight from the teachers about how they formed initial impressions of their students. Because I think the initial impressions we form of our students carry on a lot throughout the academic year, and this dictates a lot of the time the attitude and the behaviour that we demonstrate towards each individual student, perhaps causing some of these negative, also the positive, but also some of these negative outcomes, such as dislike or upset. Okay, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds before I show you the answers to think about how you form initial impressions of your students. So what you look for when the student walks in a class, the first day of the school year, how do you form an impression? Just think in your head, and then I'll show you what I came up with. Okay, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds just to have a read through. So this is the list that I came up with the teachers. Okay, so I hope that maybe some of these you thought of when I asked you to consider it before, and very interesting, and it's very insightful and revealing, some of these that the teachers said. I mean, they were very honest, which is great. And we have to admit a lot of these things because sometimes we're not aware that we form initial impressions of our students directly when they walk in the classroom. So with things got manners, whether they speak English, how they react, things like saying hi and bye. You know, we're people too. We want someone to say hello. When a student comes into the room and they don't even acknowledge us, this has an impact on then how we behave towards them, I think, throughout the year, unless they do something active to change that and to change our opinion. Positive attitude, movement, how they sit, things like that, how they look at you. I've highlighted, made bold some of these. And the reason I've highlighted some of them is because these are ones that the student cannot control very often, or something which the student will find very difficult to control. So it's not fair often for us to make these prior judgments on students when it's something that they might find difficult or they can't control. So things like attention span. Some students just have a lower attention span. That doesn't mean that they can't achieve or they can't fulfill their potential as a learner. Smile. Some people just aren't people that smile a lot. Some people have a face, and it's the same with adults and children and teenagers. Some just don't smile as much, and some people's concentration face actually looks quite mean. So we might think that they're not smiling or they're frowning, but that just might be that they're concentrating and really listening. Work completion, some students might find it really difficult to complete their work, but we might get frustrated. Volume of voice, some students are just much louder than the rest, and some students are much quieter than the rest. Language level, again, we can't control what they come into our classes with very often. You're going to have some kind of disparity in your classes. So we need to make sure that we don't negatively project our attitude onto the students because of that. These ones are very interesting as well. Prior reputation and surname. I always tell teachers when we're going from academic year to academic year, please at the end, do not warn the teacher that's getting that student next year that they're really bad, that they never do anything, that they're lazy, that this. Because what happens is that then the new teacher will go straight into a class already with a negative attitude and will interact with that student in a different way. And this has a lot to do with what I'm going to speak about next. So avoiding this negativity surrounding certain students, or surname, for example, people in their family. And I know that you'll probably be like, okay, yeah, I've done that. Or, okay, oh, this student is from this family, but they're all really bad. They never do their work. Ugh, it's ridiculous. We've had the parents in loads of times. So if you have that poor student, they've already got a negative reputation because of something their brother or sister has done. So just avoiding this will avoid that negativity from the beginning, from the get-go. Which leads me to this. Okay, so who is this? If anyone would like to write it in the chat. Who is this? Oh, have someone here. Mary Poppins. No. Yes, it's Audrey Hepburn as, in the film, My Fair Lady. Did someone write that? My Fair Lady, exactly. It's My Fair Lady. Okay, so as you know, the film My Fair Lady was based on a book, Pygmalion. And so, yes, as a florist and as a lady, that is exactly it. So here you have her transformation. You have her transformation from a florist on the street, so Eliza Doolittle selling flowers, and her transformation into becoming a lady or being perceived as a lady. But you're probably asking, what does she have to do with this? Great film. Also, very nice book. It's a very good book. The book we should always read before the film. However, this has something to do with how people are treated. Okay, so what we've got here is a quotation, which is the difference between a lady and a flower girl is not how she behaves, but how she is treated. And so if any of you that have read the book or watched the film have seen, her tutor wants to get her from being a flower girl to a lady by teaching her how to get people to treat her like one. And then so she believes that she's a lady, and eventually she does a great job. And this whole idea of the Pygmalion effect comes from a study which was conducted in 1968, so a really long time ago now, in elementary schools in America, the United States. In this study, the two psychologists that conducted it concluded that between 5 and 10% of student outcome was attributable to teacher expectation. So what they did was they took a control group of students, they gave them a test at the beginning of the year. They then told teachers of half of the students that these students were amazing. They had scored really, really highly on the tests. They had high capacity for learning. They were gifted, and that the others weren't. They then came back at the end of the year, tested the students again to see the difference in scores and whether, having told the teachers that some were better than others, whether that had an effect on their learning. And it had 5 to 10% worth. So the teachers that were told the students were much better, and they weren't, had done better and had improved more throughout the year than the students that the teachers were told were not high capacity or didn't have a high capacity for learning. So something very interesting to consider, in that actually what we do throughout the year can have a 5 to 7% impact on their learning and their outcomes in class. So along the same lines of this, in 1989, there was a paper published on this research and kind of continuing with this research that was done by Kathleen Cotton. And I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to have a read of that. Okay, so there are lots of other research. There's lots of research on this, okay? And it's really, really important, I think, for us to understand that this consistent treatment or consistent attitude with students over time, if the students don't actively resist or change it, can affect all of these areas. So self-concepts, achievement, motivation, aspiration. And importantly, our younger students, our younger children and teenagers are much more susceptible to the effects of expectancy than our older students, because younger children often believe what we say. I remember once I told a student that I came to school on a helicopter every day from the UK, and he believed me. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, it was a joke. But younger students they believe what we tell them. So it's important to be aware of the language that we use around them so that we don't have negative attitudes towards them, and so that language isn't consistently negative over time, and we don't affect their self-perception as they go through their learning journey. So what I wanted to do then was to challenge teachers' understanding of the way that they dealt with students and the attitude that they had towards their students, and think about how we could make it better and how on a daily basis we could improve our expectations of the students and also the students' outcome and general positivity surrounding their learning. So there are two main effects that teachers can have on students. So you've got here self-fulfilling prophecy and sustaining expectation. So these are the two things that we can have. So self-fulfilling prophecy can be positive or negative. Okay, if we have a very negative expectation of a student, they are going to react to fulfill that expectation. If we sustain the expectation, it could also be that we don't see their potential and we prevent change in students. So what outcome can this have? So for a self-fulfilling prophecy, if it's good, students can feel sufficiently challenged by teachers and rise to meet these high expectations. If the teacher has low expectations, students become demotivated and show a reduction in performance. However, we've got an anomaly here, which is that sometimes it could be that strong-willed students try harder to raise performance just to prove the teacher wrong. So that's kind of the opposite to the self-fulfilling prophecy that we've outlined here. The sustaining expectation here, we've got the teachers failed to see students' potential, so therefore high ability students don't push themselves to surpass the teacher expectation. The low ability students are motivated to improve their performance or skills. It could also be that students sustain and don't improve, not because of the teacher, but because sometimes the teacher might give them the expectation might be too high, and therefore the students feel overwhelmed and don't try for fear of failure and not fitting the teacher expectation. So it's important that our expectations are realistic and achievable for the students, because if they're too high, then the students will feel overwhelmed and might not then rise to meet the expectation. It could have the opposite effect. Okay, so there are different behaviours that as teachers we subconsciously exhibit in class when we're faced with a high expectation student and a low expectation student. So here are the traits that, okay, okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to read through the high expectation students and then the low expectation students, and I'll discuss some of the ones I think are particularly salient. Okay, so the ones that I've put in pink are the ones that I think are probably the most observable in class. So of classes I've observed of teachers with students that they have higher expectations of and lower expectations of, these are the ones that I think are particularly easy to see in a classroom situation. So you've got more personal interaction. So teachers often interact better, more positively with high expectation students. We guide them much more because we think they can get the answer in the end. We give them more benefit of the doubt when they act or perform in a different way because we're like, oh no, you don't usually behave like that, don't worry. Okay, but if on the other hand, if we think that someone was going to behave negatively all the time, then we remind them of that and we have less patience with them. So giving more detailed and positive feedback, yes, because we think that they can take that on board. So we tend to adjust our feedback as well that we give to high expectation students. On the other hand, we've got the low expectation students. So we wait less time for them to give the answers because we think that they can't get the answer. We often criticize them for failure more often than praising them for success. We give briefer and less informative feedback to the questions of low expectation students because sometimes we feel like they won't be able to take that on board. So it's something that affects the feedback that we give. We avoidance of development of task structuring methods to aid student comprehension, especially when time is limited. So what do I mean by this? So we will avoid giving them extra prompts or guidance on how to complete a task because we don't want to waste time or because we think they'll take too long anyway. So often they sit there and they just don't know how to complete something. So even before the task has started, we've not given them the tools to enable them to complete the task successfully. And it could just be a very simple helping them with one small aspect of the instructions or going over and pointing something out on a worksheet or on a book that could help them. This leads me nicely into this theory here, which I think is probably one of the most important pieces of research that I've read about, and this theory in terms of my own teaching. So when I read this, I was like, yes, it was kind of 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought to myself, absolutely, this is so true. It's common sense. It's nothing particularly groundbreaking, it's common sense, but I think until you really think about it, you don't realize what you're doing in class subconsciously, which will affect students in this way. So this zone of proximal development really has an effect with our lower expectation students as well. So what we're doing here with our low expectation students is not giving them this cognitive guidance in order to get from what they can do, what they can't do, and what they can do unaided. So this middle pink section of this kind of donut, this guidance is what we can give them. It doesn't mean that we do the activity for them. It doesn't mean that we do the work for them, but it means that we give them a small amount of guidance to enable them to get from can't do to can do. And this is completely confidence building for a student. So as an example, you have a student, a very young student who can't find the page in a book. Okay, as a teacher, automatically what you want to do is you want to go over to that student and you want to open the page in the book for them. But they can probably do it themselves at some point, but we lose patience and we're like, oh, just find the page in the book, come on. So with this sense, what we can do is we can give them prompts. Okay, we can give them prompts in terms of, okay, how am I going to find the page? We can open it to one page and we can say, okay, can you count 5 this way? Or can you count 5 this way? And in that sense, the more guidance you give them, the better prepared they are to do it unaided the next time. It's not going to happen straight away, but in doing things for the students, we're not giving them a chance to learn how to do it unaided. So this has a big effect on our lower expectation students, as it's all to do with the things you are able to learn with the help of more knowledgeable others. And very often those knowledgeable others are us. Could be other students in the class as well. But we need to help them make that jump between these two parts of the donut. Okay, so in discussing this with the teachers, when I did teacher training with them, we came up with what we call the expectation cycle. So this is how we viewed all the research that we'd done, the discussions that we'd had, and thinking about how this has an effect on our students. Importantly, you can start anywhere on this expectation cycle. It doesn't have to start with the teacher expectation, but it kind of goes in this order. So we have teacher expectation, students conforming to the expectation. So here we have the self-fulfilling prophecy or sustaining. This then changes how the students behave. So the students conduct themselves in class. This then has an effect on their motivation, which has an effect on their aspirations in general, which then has an effect on our expectations. So you can see that no matter where we start, expectation is important, and the way that students conduct themselves in class, their behavior, their motivation, their aspiration, this all has a big impact on the expectation, and then it can raise or lower the expectation that we have as teachers. They all have a knock-on effect, ultimately, is what I want to demonstrate here. So this also got me to thinking about the affective domain. So when we look at Bloom's taxonomy, some of you might have seen this before, he talks about the affective factors in the class. So when I talk about affective factors, I'm talking about emotions. So how emotions reveal themselves in the educational setting. And so, okay, if there are affective factors which stop me from learning, it's like a barrier. So nothing can go in and nothing can come out. And we talk about a lot the affective filter, which is something which is either raised or lowered depending on how I feel in class and what's going on inside me, not to do with cognitive senses so much. In this, the affective domain in the taxonomy, the aspects at the top are the ones which are the most difficult for students to change. And here it's having a value system that controls their behavior. So in being independent and internalizing the values that they have to control their behavior themselves. It's not easy for younger learners or for teenagers to control their behavior because they're still learning how to internalize their values. And what we've got to think here is that some days students might not have these aspects within them which affects their behavior positively. It might be negatively, but that doesn't mean that in the following days or the following weeks, they won't be able to do this, and they will be able to do it with our help. So it's important not to change your attitude towards the students just because you think their negative behavior could be internalized, because ultimately with children, that doesn't happen. They're changing all the time, and teenagers are changing all the time. So what it is a build-up of being aware, being participative, attaching value to something, having a value system within your head, and then ultimately that is what controls your behavior. And as teachers, we can help students with this. We're not going to necessarily change it quickly, but we can help students with being able to internalize those good values and put that system in place. So according to Bloom, teachers can affect the students' learning in 6 areas. So we can affect their feelings, we can affect their values, or we can help them see things that are valued. We can affect their appreciation, so recognition and enjoyment of the good qualities of someone or something. So saying that someone's done a really nice job, or thank you for helping, or that was really funny, the thing that you said, thank you very much. Attitude, so way of thinking or feeling about something. Enthusiasm, and remember with enthusiasm, a lot of the students' enthusiasm comes from us as well. And emotions, so a feeling deriving from your circumstances, mood. So emotions, having a positive emotional state in class can help the learning process. How easy, I ask you, really, is it to analyse the extent of our impact on students' behaviour in class according to these 6 areas? Not really very easy. Affective factors are very difficult to evaluate and very difficult to analyse within a classroom situation, because you have lots of students, changes from one day to the next. but it's important to think about it and think about, as teachers, what our students would say and how they react in class and what they value in a teacher. So we may hazard a guess, but we don't really know. So I thought, let's find out. Because sometimes with students, we may ask ourselves this: why can't you just tell me what you feel, because how you act is confusing me? And I think for younger learners and for teenagers, sometimes this can be the case for us teachers. It's quite difficult for us from one day to the next to know what they're feeling or what they're thinking. So I decided that it would be nice to get the students to tell us how they feel, or to show us how they feel, and see if this reveals anything about what we could do as teachers to make the general classroom situation better and to improve effective factors. Okay, so I conducted some research in the schools, so 4 centres, we had 25 teachers, and eventually, after a lot of data input, we had 438 students that we took answers from. So we gave them different kind of surveys or questionnaires depending on their age, and we collated their responses to see if that was revealing for anything to do with what we've spoken about before. And general conclusions, when we wanted to know both the good and the bad as teachers to see if we could do anything about it. Okay, so the action research, so we had different ages and levels. We had 8 to 10-year-olds, 7 to 13, 13 plus, B1, B2s, and then C1, C2s as well. Different question types, so we asked them about their teachers, their perceived level, their feelings, how they felt about learning English. So here are aspirations and motivation. And depending on the age and the level of the students, we had different levels of responses. So we have emojis, which of course all the students use now, and me, love an emoji. We had one-word answers for the younger learners, and we also had full sentences for the older students. So as I said, after hours of this input, we came to some conclusions, and I think it's very revealing and interesting to see what the students say. And if there's anything you can do that would be really positive for your teaching, it's to really ask your students how they feel in their classes, because we don't often, as we've said, know from their actions what they're thinking or they're feeling, and it's sometimes difficult to interpret. So let's have a look at some of the responses that I think were particularly revealing or interesting for us. So how does learning English make you feel? So this was the emoji, the happy face. So of the 50 of the different faces that we showed them, 8 to 10-year-olds, 59% said they felt happy. 11 to 13-year-olds, 41%. And then as we go up, the percentage decreases. Okay, and you might say this is not surprising. But I would like to add that perhaps this doesn't have so much to do with the students themselves and their attitude, but how much we remind them and how positive we are about learning in these different levels and with these different age groups. I would like to also say, when was the last time you gave a sticker to a 15-year-old? I like stickers. I would like to receive a sticker as a student. It might make me feel better. But we often overcompensate with the younger learners, and we're more enthusiastic and more positive about learning in general with the younger learners than we are with the older learners. So is this necessarily to do with their age group, or is it to do with us and how we react to them in class and how positive we are about learning? We don't know, but I would like to hazard a guess that it has a lot to do with how positive we are with the teenagers compared to the very young learners. Also, I love stickers. And I think teenagers do too. They say they don't, but they do. So with the higher levels, with the C1, C2, we decided to get them to write something about how it makes them feel. And so these were a few of the comments that they came up with. So I'm just going to give you 1 minute to have a read through some of these comments. Okay, so they're questioning a lot more when they get to this level, the value of learning and the value of learning English. You've got here, I'm being taught English to pass an exam, not for daily life. I'm concerned about the importance of it. I'm starting to feel very unwise, which at C1, C2, they shouldn't feel more unwise. They should feel much wiser. But some of them are happy, tired, but proud. So with the development they've made, happy to think about the progress, curious. So there are some positives and negatives here, but I think overwhelmingly at this level, they think more about, they question the value of everything and think about, okay, why am I doing this? What's the point of me coming to class all of these days? What am I going to get out of it? Rather than just enjoying the learning aspect because they like learning. And again, I'd like to state that very often in these higher levels, we reiterate that they're doing it to pass an exam, or we reiterate that they're doing it because they want to do this and they want to do this, and parents do it too. It's not just the teachers. And so we're much less likely to be to transmit that joy and happiness about learning just for the sake of learning with higher levels than we are with the younger learners. So again, this could have something to do with the way that we project our own expectations onto the students. So thinking about their English levels here. So whether they're happy with the progress, quite happy, not sure, could be better, or not happy at all. So the ones in pink here are the ones that I think were particularly interesting. So here the group that are happiest with their progress, of course, are the younger ones. Again, do we remind them more that they're making progress than the older learners who we don't often remind that they're making progress? The B1, B2 are the most uncertain. So we need to think about the feedback that we're giving to this level. So the B1, B2 levels, are we telling them that they're making progress, or are we constantly telling them that you could do better and that there are aspects of it that you're not achieving and you need to achieve at this level? And so we've got here the 18%, I'm not sure at all, 3% could be better. Does this come from the student necessarily themselves, or does that come from what the teacher is telling them and the expectations that we have? Okay, so on top of this, we decided to find out how the students perceive their teachers, because that's also important. And it's also nice to know what people say about you, because we all want to know that a little bit. So we have here 11 to 13-year-olds. So we've got the positives here. If you just read the pink ones, I think the pink ones are the best ones. I picked them out. Okay, so I'd like you to think back to our Miss Honey and Miss Trunchbull that we had before, and are there any correlations between what we thought of as good teachers and what we thought of as bad teachers? So these good teachers here, obviously, we're very funny, we're entertaining, and it's really nice that these are the values that students value in us and that lead to positive behaviour. So they like us caring for them, being patient, not shouting. We have here super handsome, which I think is very funny. Students obviously like that, it's a motivating factor for them. And these are the negative ones. Okay, so we've got here boring, bad mood, demanding, not easygoing, strict, bossy. And so what we can conclude from this is that these are the aspects that students don't like in their teachers, and that will lead to that negative motivation, negative behaviour, and that negative expectation, again, that we have of our students, and that circle that we spoke about before. Positives, great, but what can we do about these negatives? That's really the question that we need to ask. And how do all these things make students feel? So some students feel like class is fun, they feel happy, they feel cozy. And cozy, I think, is a really lovely word to use for a classroom. What they want to do is they want to feel welcomed, and they want to feel happy, and like everything is just nice around them. So this cozy, I think, is a really lovely adjective to use for how students want to feel in class. They want to feel like relaxed and chilled. My favorite here, we had a child saying speaky. I feel very speaky, and I think we should definitely use that. Happy, calm, respected, comfortable, proud, cheerful. And also we've got here the negative ones that they came up with. So bored, competitive. It's interesting. So we often say that competition is quite good in class, but too much competition can make students feel bad. Silent, hot, obviously we need some AC in the classrooms, annoyed, bored, overwhelmed, they feel a bit stupid, bored, lazy. Okay, obviously we can't control how hungry they feel, but push for time perhaps as well. I mean, it's interesting to see what we can control and what we can't control. But again, we want to focus on these positive feelings and think about how we can improve the negative ones. So another thing that we can consider here is how students feel when they don't understand, because that's really an important way on how they deal with themselves and their learning in the classroom. So with the younger ones, okay, the ones that felt like a little bit confused, however you interpret this. So we have 27% here feeling like, oh, I'm not really sure. But importantly, we still have 13% feeling very positive about making a mistake, meaning that they're learning. You've got some that feel sad, some that feel in love, which I thought was quite funny. They feel really cool. 5% feel cool when they don't understand. Most feel a little bit confused. But sadness and kind of confusion, and some can feel angry as well. So we have to deal with this in class. With the B1s to C2s, we got them to write a little bit more. So interestingly, the positive, I don't need to understand everything. Great. Happy because I feel like I'm learning. Great. Stupid at first, but they're more intelligent, which I think is a really nice way of putting it. The negatives, ignored, frustrated, annoyed, under pressure, worried, I feel out of place. This is important as well for a teacher, not to kind of make that difference so obvious, because we don't want one person to feel like they don't understand and they feel like everyone else does, because this might not necessarily happen. So thinking about how we react to students' errors and students' mistakes, and how we remind them that this is an area to improve, and we don't necessarily focus just on you're wrong and you're right, because we don't want students to feel ignored, frustrated and annoyed, or feel sad or frustrated or angry like they had before. So this is one of my favorite quotations ever with teaching, and it's by this guy. I never know how to pronounce his name. Zoltan Dornei, I think. I'm not sure. Some people will probably correct me. And interestingly, he states that the vision of who students want to become as L2 users seems to be one of the most reliable predictors of their long-term intended efforts. So we have to ask them and get them to think about their English learning and how it's going to take them forward, and have a vision towards the end, and have a goal, something that they're working towards. Not always an exam, but something that they can work to. And this is where our expectation comes in, because our expectation is a goal for them to work towards. So why do they like learning English? So this is in terms of the younger ones. It's quite nice because they have these really idealistic reasons that they like learning English, because they can go to Hollywood, they like listening to Michael Jackson songs, they want to be better at school. So when I'm an adult, I can live in London. So they really have a bigger vision for learning than probably the older learners. Then you get to 11 to 13, and the pink ones here are more kind of these motivation factors such as learning and school and exams. But still here, I want to be a Liverpool football player. Nice, have that dream, go for it. That's probably more motivating than I have to get the FCE for students. Okay, what I'd like to say is also that perhaps we remind the younger learners all of the great things they can do in their lives a lot more than the older learners, and we focus a lot more on these exams. I want to continue learning English because, so here we've got the B1s, B2s. We've got kind of a mixture here of some to do with these nice internal values which they have. The satisfaction of being able to understand songs. I want to travel the world. I'm not sure. I think it's good for my future. Interesting. My parents make me. I need better marks at school. So this, again, as we get higher in the learning journey, students are much more focused on this. I just need to get an exam, rather than thinking about how they see themselves as English learners in the future. But then we get to C1 and C2, and they tend to get a little bit more in terms of real life. So the fact that I'm actually interested, because the ones that get to this point because they really like learning English. So the difference here is interesting between the B1, B2 and the C1, C2. But then interesting, you still have, once I get the C1, I can quit English. And I probably think a lot of your students will think that, and that affects how they behave in the class and our expectations towards them. It's like, okay, you get a C1, done, bye-bye, we're done with you. But this is a fantastic qualification and something they can use throughout their lives. Okay. And importantly, we are a great example for them. Okay, so in class, you think, okay, how can I use my English? What's the vision that I want to become? As language teachers and language learners, we are a fantastic example of what you can do. Move to different countries, teach, you can speak to everybody, you can learn new languages. So we are a great example for students, and we should remind them more all the great things that perhaps we've done with languages that would help them in the future, rather than just to pass an exam. Of course, going through all of these, you get some very funny examples. And this was my favorite example, that answer that we got. How do you feel when you don't understand something? I feel stressed and stupid because I think that I am short. I like this false, this mistranslation of short and feeling silly. I very much enjoyed that. Which we all thought was quite funny. But with teacher training as well, we have to make sure that we work together and that we have fun, and that we're having fun in our classes, and that we are positive about what we can do and the effect that we can have in our classes and on our students' learning. And also, just love this picture, so I decided to put it in. And also, students feed off this positivity. If we're positive with our colleagues and together, then, and we have high expectations of ourselves as teachers, then the students automatically will have high expectations of themselves. They feed off this. So we decided, we looked at the results after we got them, and then we came back together and decided what we could do in class to counteract those negative feelings that we saw, and how we can raise our expectations of our students. So these are the things that the teachers came up with. I'll just give you 1 minute to have a look through them. Okay, so things like giving them options, giving constructive praise, encouraging collaboration over competition, avoiding putting students on the spot, making them more aware of being more aware of how we correct students, giving constructive feedback, positive over negative comments, and we need to smile as well. And I think some of the teachers picked this out, that they, in the answers that their students had given, they didn't smile enough. So something that we don't necessarily realise that we're doing, which is having an effect on how the students view us and how they feel in class. It's encouraging students to take more risks and make mistakes. I think that's really, really important as well. Okay, but what does this actually mean for our classes? What can we do? So here we've got 4 main areas that we can work on in class. So here, the feedback and the praise, the instructions and the scaffolding, the teacher attitude and actions, and the awareness of the individual. There are a lot here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them up here, and if you want to, you can ask me and I'll send you the PDF of the presentation afterwards, so you can have a look. Okay, so in general, in these areas, we can make a difference to students and increase that positivity within the class so that they feel better, and so that we have a better expectation of them. Okay, so afterwards I can send you the presentation. Okay, so it's all well and good having our teachers say all of these things and coming up with a really nice diagram of what they can do and giving them ideas about how they can go away and use this productively. But often with teachers, this is what we hear. Thanks for the advice. It's great, but they don't tend to change. And this is not an easy habit to change. But it's really, really crucial to be able to work on this in the classes, because it's something which has a really big effect on the students. And so I think this is a really interesting conclusion about the professional development of teachers, especially in this aspect, how it can help our students, but also how important it is for teachers. So high quality teacher professional development is essential to great teaching. We need to strengthen student and teacher interactions and raise teacher awareness of their own biases, which, like we said at the beginning, this surname, this negatively transferring the information from one teacher to another, and being supportive as well. So I sent the teachers away and I asked them to come back a month later with things that they had learned from the experience of trying to change their behaviour over the course of a month. You might say, oh, a month isn't that long, but this is a really, really nice piece of feedback that I got from one of the teachers. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to have a read through this. Okay, so what we've got here is a nice example of, okay, a teacher saying, all right, you've copied, but I actually don't want to hear that. I want to hear you. I expect you to tell me a story. I want to hear your voice. So instead of being negative towards a student and saying, no, that's wrong, what we said instead was a positive thing. All right, well, I don't want to hear that person on the internet that you've copied from. I'd rather hear you. And it had a positive outcome. I'm not saying that every outcome will be the same, but just this example, I think, is a really good demonstration of how just changing one reaction to something can increase a student's outcome and performance based on our expectations that we transmit to that student. Okay, is it easy? Our teacher said no, it wasn't easy. And these are the things that they found difficult. So it was difficult for them not to go into classes with a negative feeling. It was difficult for them to have patience, reminding the students of their abilities, not putting students in boxes too quickly, explaining things in other ways to review. So give students generous waiting time. These are the aspects that teachers found particularly difficult when I sent them away for that month in order to do the, to see if they could change their habits and also the students' outcomes. Okay, so, oh no, that's changed. Oh, that's really annoying me. Anyway, so here we've got, you've probably heard of the growth mindset, but this is all really developed within the growth mindset as well. So something that you've probably heard a lot about is here the difference between students being able to do something because we tell them they can do it and that they can grow, and students not being able to do something because we don't remind them that mistakes are an area for learning. So here it's the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed and that it can change with your efforts. So if you put in more effort, you can achieve. So it's different in a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. So here as well, the self-fulfilling prophecy and the sustaining expectation. And teachers have a lot to do with this. So we want to ultimately get our students to push themselves out of their comfort zone a bit, to become stronger, to get smarter with the mistakes that they make and the things that they don't know. And they found out here that the meaning of effort and difficulty were transformed. Before, effort and difficulty made them feel dumb, made them feel like giving up. But now effort and difficulty, that's when their neurons are making new connections, stronger connections. That's when they're getting smarter. And so I want you to take this away from today's talk and today's webinar and think about how you can remind students that actually mistakes are good rather than the fact that mistakes are bad. So in class, this can affect how students approach. And I'd like us to go back to two of the things that we saw earlier from our students, saying that they're happy because I feel like I'm learning. This is the attitude we want to foster, and we want to get rid of these and kind of dispel these attitudes that they feel under pressure, worried, stressed, and stupid. So our aim as teachers is to get students to feel happy because they're learning, as opposed to worried because they feel like they're getting things wrong all the time. And promote confident mindsets. So what now? What are you going to take away from this? And hopefully, what are you going to do? So one thing I want you to do is listen to each other, but in a positive way. Work together, support each other, react to what you're saying, and listen to our students. So I want you to listen more to your students, to think about how they feel rather than just how you feel, and how maybe you haven't had an impact on that as well. It's all about communication, and we're language teachers, okay? So it's understanding and importantly, what we've got and how we interact with our students. Okay, and then it's essential to have staff members who hold high expectations for themselves as leaders and teachers, and who take responsibility for student performance. So we need to have expectations of ourselves as well as expectations of our students, because it's all encompassing, it all works together. And so to end the webinar on a positive note, I decided to record some of the students and ask them how they thought that good teachers made them feel. So I'm going to give students the last word in this webinar, because I think it's just really nice. And so I didn't actually tell them to say all these nice things, by the way. That's another thing. So I just want you to have a look at the students and think about how your students would react to a question like this. Okay? Why can't you see it?
It makes me feel like the best version of myself.
Makes me feel student happy.
Makes me feel valued.
Makes me feel intelligent and confident.
Makes me feel like I can reach my goals.
Makes me feel comfortable.
Makes me feel enthusiastic.
Makes me feel worth it.
Makes me feel confident and clever. I feel like I can talk to him.
Makes me feel happy and comfortable.
I feel happy and I feel that I can speak to native speakers. I feel like I'm learning a lot and I feel like I know a lot.
A good teacher gives me good vibes.
I feel comfortable and relaxed. I feel better than ever.
Makes me feel interested in the subject.
A good teacher makes me feel motivated to learn.
Makes me feel happy and confident.
A good teacher helps me feel confident and like I can learn. Makes me feel confident and like I'm doing well.
Makes me feel if I'm having a bad day, after the class it will be a good day.
Feel like I love the subject.
I feel like a better person and wonderful.
Makes me feel fantastic.
Okay, so that's kind of the conclusion. I wanted to let them have the last word on that. So just a reminder, if you do want to know more about teaching younger learners, we've launched on our online learning platform that you use to register for this webinar, the Young Learners course. So have a look at that. The first module is free and it's all about the different aspects of teaching younger learners, so children and teenagers. So take a look at that and see if it might be something that would be worthwhile for you. Thank you very, very much for listening to me today. If you have any questions, you can type them now in the chat, or you can email me, so karen@londonschool.com. The recording of this webinar will be on the webinar library from later on in the day today. And so anything that you want to know, obviously you can go back to that and pause it and look at some of the things that were perhaps more wordy and you didn't get a chance to look at, or you can ask me questions, email me. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have on the topic. And all that's left for me to say is thank you very, very much for joining us today. Thank you very, very much to Richmond for getting a lot of you to join. And I hope to see you soon on the webinars, and I hope that everyone is doing well at home and is doing well online teaching and is still feeling positive. So thank you very, very much. I hope to hear from you soon and see you soon on other webinars. Thank you guys. Have a fantastic weekend. Okay, bye bye everyone.